Hey everybody, welcome back to another Flash recap and review. Today I'm talking about episode 13 of season 6, entitled Grodd Friended Me. If you haven't seen this episode, pause the video, go watch it on cwtv.com, and then come back here because we are talking full spoilers. This was a really fun episode. I liked it a lot. It was contained. There wasn't a lot of big things happening necessarily, but this does have ramifications for the rest of the season, for a lot of the story points, which I thought was interesting. And we got some great character development for certain characters like Chester P. Runk, Barry, Iris, and Allegra. So let's get right into it. We start off with Barry walking around, it looks like in this underpass of some kind. He looks very confused. He has a bouquet of flowers in his hand, and then he gets called into action by Chester and Camilla, who are holding in the fort because everybody else is busy apparently. And so they help him chase down a criminal who turns out to be Hartley from way back in season 1, the Pied Piper. He's back. Now, what's interesting is earlier in this post-crisis version of The Flash, Cisco mentioned that we'd be seeing villains from the past coming back with either a new look, new powers, something different about them. Before Crisis, Hartley was friends with Team Flash after Barry had changed the timeline. I think it was the first time he did. No, the second time they changed the timeline. Hartley became friends with everybody in Team Flash. He wasn't an enemy anymore. But now it looks like Crisis undid that, and now he's an enemy again. Which then is interesting because later on we find out another villain is now a friend. But you see them go after Pied Piper, but he gets away. And Chester tries to help Barry through the comms, but Barry is kind of apprehensive, like, I don't really know you. I don't feel comfortable with you on the comms. Like, it makes sense, and this whole episode is really about Barry dealing with change. Crisis, of course, was a huge change for everybody across the board. There's a whole new world out there, and for Barry, it's especially hard because a lot of things that he knew in Central City are either gone or completely different than how he remembers it. So a lot of the episode is him dealing with that. Part of this is the new additions to Team Flash, new people in the mix. Now, these people were there before Crisis, but still, Barry is kind of getting used to them still. So I thought that was really interesting. Chester is a huge fanboy, huge nerd. Of course, you already knew this. But he finds out that Barry is the Flash because he sees Barry speeding around the speed lab. And he's freaking out, of course. He really wants to help Barry. He wants to be part of Team Flash. He wants to help him fight villains and stuff, which I thought was a really interesting take. And I like the direction they're going with this character because you don't really get to see him that much. But when you do see him, he's really entertaining. He's endearing. He's very energetic. I love his character, and he bounces off the others so well. So in this episode, you really get a lot of great Chester moments. Barry is working on the little device he has for Gideon where he can access it remotely, or access her, him. I don't remember what Gideon's supposed to be. But he uses this little earpiece, right? And he's working on it. Chester sees Barry working on this little earpiece thing, and then he tries to make a small tweak to it, and then Barry tries to freak out and say, no, 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 don't do anything. And Chester pulls back. Now, you do see a lot of this conflict where Barry, again, doesn't fully trust Chester yet, and as the episode goes on, he does gain that trust for him. But I do think it was interesting, though, that Chester was just so ready to help, and he is capable because he's a smart person. Of course, he created a black hole by accident, and they do joke about that. But you can see he means well, and he does have a lot to contribute to this team. Barry tests out the little earpiece thing and then immediately knocks him out into a coma. We later find out that this coma that Barry is in is a result of his brain being mashed together with Grodd's. Like, Grodd pulls him into his mental prison that he's trapped in at Argus, and the whole episode is about these two trying to escape the mind meld and make it out before they're both dead. I thought this was a really great episode. It's very small and contained. It's kind of like a bottle episode of sorts where they're just trapped in their mind. Barry is dealing with Grodd, and he's kind of pushing back, where Grodd is trying to tell him, hey, I've changed, I'm a good guy, I realize now that everything I did was wrong. But Barry's just not having it, and he immediately punches Grodd right off the bat, tries to escape, realizes he can't, and then he has to team up with Grodd. I thought that was an interesting take. So like I said, Hartley is now a villain again, but in his place, we kind of get Grodd. Grodd and Barry are cool now by the end of this episode, which I thought was interesting. And it really does show how Crisis is really having ripple effects throughout the multiverse, throughout all the shows that we know so far. One part I really enjoyed about this Grodd and Barry storyline is when they fused together into one being, where Grodd had Barry's speed and he had the lightning bolt like tattooed on his chest. That was amazing. That fight scene was really awesome. I also have to point out the CGI on Grodd and Salazar in this episode is actually a lot better than usual. Maybe it's just me, but I think they really did take the time and like make sure everything looked good, because sometimes Grodd looks a little too cartoony, and again, they're on a TV budget, so they can't do like Marvel or DCEU level CGI, but in this case, I think it looked pretty good for TV. So while Barry is trapped in Grodd's mind, everybody else is trying to figure out how to get him out. Frost is there, Chester's there, Camilla's there. Chester, you can see, is taking it hard that he messed up. He blames himself for Barry being stuck in there. He has this moment with Frost where he's telling her a story about this teacher that he had. He made this invention. He apparently took a bunch of vacuum cleaning parts and recreated the Millennium Falcon. It didn't work the first time he showed the teacher, and the teacher said, people like us don't get a second chance. And I thought that was a really powerful moment. And it's like not too in your face. Like, it's not preachy. The way that they showed this message, it wasn't preachy. It was just enough that you understood who Chester was, what he's gone through leading up to this point, and what made him how he is now. So you see he's very apprehensive to try again to help Barry because of that one instance, but also several instances across the show, like the black hole thing too. Like, he's afraid to mess up again. As Frost puts it, everybody on the team at some point has put Barry's life in danger and they've had to fix it. Now it's just Chester's turn. This episode was an official initiation for Chester. Like, now I think he's definitely in Team Flash. And that's something I was talking about earlier. If you go back and watch my first episode 1 recap and review, I was talking about how Chester was probably going to stick around and I would love it if he did. And now we're getting that, which I really like. For both Barry and Chester, they're both growing a lot. Barry is learning about dealing with change, the changes of crisis, accepting people for who they are, accepting people who may have changed, while Chester is dealing with his own problems, like his own mistakes, learning to live with his mistakes, but also trying to do the best he can in Team Flash, use his skills because he knows he has them and he wants to help. He's really energetic, he's enthusiastic, but it's just getting to that point of gaining Barry's trust. So these two arcs I thought were really interesting, and I really was invested a lot in those. Next we have Ava and Iris still trapped in Mirror World. This was interesting, part 2, but I am a little disappointed they're still not getting Iris out. Like, I can see it slowly progressing, but the way it seems like they're dragging it on, I'm like, are they gonna save this till the season finale? Because by the end of this episode, she's still trapped in there. But we did learn some new information. We see Eva using this device, and she's kind of apprehensive. Iris keeps pushing her, trying to figure out why. Why don't you want to use this device to get us out, blah, blah, blah. And then Ava just shows her, like, she sticks her hand, she turns the device on, sticks her hands in the mirror, and it, like, burns her arms up, whatever. And you're like, oh, okay, I see, it's hurting her. Maybe it has something to do with her powers. Iris is bandaging her up, and then it's like, oh, there's more bandages in my other room. Iris walks away, and then you see, first, Eva was, like, all crying and sad, and then all of a sudden it just stops when Iris leaves. You can tell it's an act. You see her walk up to the mirror, and Mirror Iris is there. And she also has the same burn marks as Ava, so they're somehow connected. Maybe that is actually the mirror version of Ava McCulloch and it can shapeshift? I don't know, but this is getting really interesting. You see her heal the burns on the other Iris and she said, I'm sorry I had to do that, but now your cover is safe. Something like that. And now you can see that they're working together and somehow Ava is the reason that Iris is trapped. Because that was something I was wondering, like, she seemed way too innocent when we first were introduced to her. Like, she seemed more like a victim, but I'm like, who pulled her into the mirror? Who pulled Iris into the mirror? Now, I definitely think it was Ava McCulloch, and she is up to something. And we're going to figure that out eventually, hopefully soon, because I like the story, but at the same time, I was really, really digging the Iris reporter stuff, and I want to get back to that. So hopefully in the next couple of episodes, they solve this thing and they figure it out. But I do think certain characters are going to start catching on very soon. Like, Barry kind of was, but they threw him off the trail. But I think Joe is going to be the next person to try and figure things out. So Mirror Iris, or Other Iris, whatever you want to call her, she's trying to get more information on Carver, but we don't know why. And she's really pushing Joe, and she snaps on him at one point. And I thought, oh, okay, this is it. This is going to be the moment where he figures it out. So at first, and the logic here kind of does make sense, she says, well, the other day, you let Barry give me the mirror gun. You convinced him that it was okay to give me that. But now you won't let me get evidence on this case. And then Joe explains that that's different. That was Team Flash, but this is official police business, so I can't tell you. And then she snaps on him. So I think in that moment, he probably did catch on, but we don't get it yet. But I definitely think he's going to start being a little more cautious around her. And he's going to start picking up like, hey, this is not my Iris. This is not my daughter. We'll see how that goes. And lastly, we have the story of Allegra and Nash Wells. It's official. They've confirmed it now that Allegra's doppelganger is Nash Wells' daughter. And like, he kind of denies it, but it's basically confirmed now. Like, she says it, Frost says it. And of course, Allegra, when she finds this out, she's not too happy about it because it's really weird for her. At first, she interpreted it as someone was really rooting for her, someone actually believed in her, and she was kind of happy about that. But then she finds out that it's actually just because she looks like someone else that this person cares about. And so that really hurt for her. And that makes sense. I do understand why she was mad. Now, do I think this is something that's going to last a long time? No. But I do think because she already kind of had a problem with Nash Wells that like this is something they're going to have to work through throughout the rest of the season, where they are going to work together as partners, but their relationship is going to be definitely flawed for a little while. We'll see. By the way, while this was all happening, while Allegra and Nash Wells were working out whatever was going on between them, Nash Wells was seeing more visions of past versions of Wells. And this time we see Sherlock. I don't know if I even said it right. Sherlock, whatever. You see him there, and he's kind of taunting him like, oh, your device is not going to work. Oh, she's not going to do that, do this, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the episode, in the end credit scene, Nash Wells is about to go to Allegra and tell her everything, tell her the whole truth. And then he stops him. Sherlock stops Nash Wells, and he says he's coming. He's coming next. And then you see his face start to shake and the eyes turn red. So we can assume that the next version of Wells that he's probably going to see is the Reverse Flash. But what I'm wondering now is, one, are these visions real? Two, is this version of Reverse Flash coming an illusion, a specter, whatever you want to call it? Like, is this going to be only in his mind, or is the real Reverse Flash going to come back? Because we did see him escape the end of last season, and they haven't said anything about it since. So this could be him coming back. We don't know. 3, the next episode seems to be very Speed Force heavy, so is that going to be where the Reverse Flash comes in? Is it still going to be the real one, or some other illusion? But all that said, I really enjoyed this episode. Great character development for Chester and Barry, but also there was a really great moment where Grodd and Flash fused together. That was really cool. Seeing lightning coming out of Grodd, seeing him run, and hearing "Run, Grodd, run." I mean, like, that stuff was all really cool. The stuff in Nashville was interesting, the development between his relationship and Allegra. And we got one more level to the Mirror World story. Like, we're slowly peeling back the layers of Ava McCulloch and what's really going on. So I'm excited. But what I am super, super excited for is the next episode, which is going to be a couple weeks late, which is okay. But we're going to get Wally West back. He's back, and he's here to figure out what's going on with the Speed Force, because we could kind of see since Crisis something's been kind of off with Barry and his powers. So we're going to finally figure out what that is. Are you excited about that? What did you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.